I'm Kyle Bangeter, Service Engineer for Polaris Engineered Accessories. In our video today, we're going to be covering the installation and adjustment process for installing a set of doors on a full-size Ranger model. The doors we'll be working with today are fixed window doors, but our install and adjustment process is very similar for all the different door offerings for this model. Let's get started on the installation. First, we'll unbox our new accessory and reference the kit instructions. Check to make sure that all components listed in the instructions are available and you have them set out and ready to go. Also, make sure that you have all the required tools before beginning the installation process. All of our accessory door kits include a cab seal kit. This kit consists of a number of foam pieces that are installed in different locations around the cab area to totally make the cab airtight so that we do not have dust entering into the sealed cab system. We have already installed this cab seal kit, and this is always the first thing to complete when starting to do your cab installation. Since we've installed that, we've already removed our B-pillar plastics from the side of the vehicle, and we'll keep these off to install the lower door hinges and to modify the B-pillar plastics to allow the hinges to protrude. Next step here, we'll install our lower door hinge. Note that the curl on the hinge goes to the rear, and the 2 bolts go to the front. We have 3 bolts that will retain this in place. After we've installed our lower hinge, we're ready to reinstall our B-pillar over the top. After removing our B-pillar plastics, on the back side, we'll see that we have a scribe line. This line indicates where we'll cut out to allow the lower hinge to come through the plastic. Once our B-pillar plastics are in place, we can fasten them again through the bolster bar and in the rear. Also at this point, make sure that we reattach our hose behind here and retighten down the hose clamp. Now that our lower hinges are installed, we can move on to install our upper hinge. Note that we need to grab the correct left or right hinge with the bracket with our mount holes to the right and the pin to the left. This will mount to the cab frame here, inserting the nut plate behind, and then threading our bolts through to retain in place. For now, we'll lightly snug these bolts and hold it in place. We'll come back later to adjust at this point. Now that we have our upper and lower hinges installed, we can move forward with completing a couple final steps before setting the doors in place. First, we're going to install a small plastic washer over the pin on both the lower and upper hinge, and then we're going to apply a small amount of Polaris all-season grease to the pin. This will aid in installation and setting the door in place, as well as helping it pivot. Next, we're ready to fit our door in place on the vehicle. We'll note that the pin on our upper hinge is slightly longer than the pin on our lower hinge. This allows us to start by aligning the door hinge and the cab side hinge first on the top, and then complete the installation by sliding it down onto the bottom hinge. With our door set in place, we'll now move ahead to aligning the door in the door opening between all the different sides. So we're going to push in and up to get the door to a good place, a good starting location, and then we'll tighten down 1 bolt on the upper and lower door side hinges. Now that we have our door hung and our initial position set, we can work around the door frame and fine-tune the position of the door to get the best fit and good seal compression. We'll make sure that our gapping along the top, front, back, and bottom are as even as possible. So we're looking for a nice centered position of the door in the profile cab frame and body plastics. To make an adjustment, we can look for a gap here. If we'd like to move the top of the door back, we simply loosen our hinge up top lift the door, and tighten again. We can make that same adjustment at our bottom hinge as well. We have slotted brackets here that allow us to move that front to back. By loosening our fastener, we're now able to push the bottom of the door forward and back. Once we have a good place and we have an even gap in the front and rear, then we can tighten this back down. Once we've made our adjustments at the top and the bottom of the door, and we have a nice even gap all the way around, we're ready to move on to installing the striker. First, we'll start by selecting the correct striker bracket, as these are different left to right. The open side of the bracket here should face the outside of the vehicle, and the extra extension of the bracket should face down. In this case, we've loosely installed our striker shaft onto the bracket already. We'll note that the bracket is slotted in multiple positions. This will allow us to adjust our striker so that we get the proper location on the door and good engagement. We've now installed our 2 mounting bolts as well as our striker shaft here. These have all been set in the center of the slot so that we have a good baseline to start from for adjustment. Once we're ready to begin adjusting, we'll swing the door shut and check the alignment of the inner latch pawls against the striker shaft. To begin aligning our striker, we'll first ensure that our striker pin is in the correct vertical position. To do that, we want to ensure that the center of the striker pin is aligned with the center of the latch pawls in the door. So between the upper and the lower latch pawl, we have a seam. That seam should be aligned with the center of our pin. To make an adjustment, we can loosen our 2 mounting bolts on the bracket and move the bracket up or down. With the vertical position of our striker set, we can now move on to set the depth of the striker. So we'll be able to adjust how far out or in our striker pin is located. Making this adjustment allows us to get the proper engagement of the latch. There are 2 different latch positions as the door shuts. These can be heard with an audible click as we press the door closed. Our initial latch engagement is first, and then with more force we'll hear our final latch engagement. It's very important when making our adjustments that we do confirm that we're getting both clicks. We need to make sure that we are getting full engagement of the door, and we're also able to use this adjustment to make sure that we get the proper seal cushion here so that we're actually sealing the door off. So in this case, we get our initial click and our second click, but it doesn't take very much force to shut this door, and we don't have a very tight seal across the top. So in this case, we're going to adjust that striker pin in towards the vehicle so that it takes more pressure to shut the door and it holds a tighter seal. We've now adjusted our striker pin inward towards the vehicle so that it takes a little more pressure to latch the door to the secondary latch and to get a better seal along the top of the door. We'll test this now. We'll hear our first click and apply pressure to get our second click. Right now we have the proper amount of pressure required to get this door to latch so that it's easy to operate, but still a good tight seal along the top and the bottom of the door. Next, we're going to install the cab side mount for our limiter strap for our door. This consists of a nut, a bolt, and an aluminum sleeve. First, we're going to slide the sleeve over our bolt, and then we're going to hold our nut on the inside of our cross member. To assist, we want to use the open inside of our wrench, and we've used a small piece of tape to help hold that nut in place while we align. With this mount installed, we can now partially close our door and slide our limiter strap over the top of our mount. Now that we have the rest of the adjustment on our door set up, we're going to come back for our final step. What we're going to do is loosen up our 2 bolts on this mount so that we have some free play in this bracket. From there, we're going to push up on the outside of the bracket so that the pin is properly aligned with the door and tighten the mount back in place. This final step allows us to ensure that we don't have any binding between the hinges and that we get smooth door function. Our driver's side door is now fully installed and adjusted to give us a good fit, good feel for swing, and a good latch. We can follow the same process to complete the installation of our passenger side door as well. During initial break-in of these doors, we'll find that these doors can sometimes settle, and we may need to come back and tweak our adjustment to get them fitting perfectly again. If you have any questions at all about Polaris Engineered accessories or are looking for more information on our various cab components, either visit your local Polaris dealer or check out the Polaris website.